Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. Back with you with the next video in my series reading The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. Without further ado, returning to The Invisible Man as read by Lord Naren White. The thick of the crowd had already passed. "Looky there, Ted," quoth the younger of the detectives, with the dim sharpness of surprise in his voice, and pointed straight to my feet. I looked down and saw at once the dim suggestion of their outline sketched in splashes of mud. For a moment I was paralyzed. "Why, that's rum," said the elder. Said the elder. "Dashed rum. It's just like the ghost of a foot, ain't it?" He hesitated and advanced with outstretched hand. A man pulled up short to see what he was catching, and then a girl. In another moment he would have touched me. Then I saw what to do. I made a step. The boy started back with an exclamation, and with a rapid movement I swung myself over into the portico of the next house. But the smaller boy was sharp-eyed enough to follow the movement, and before I was well down the steps and upon the pavement, he had recovered from his momentary astonishment and was shouting out that the feet had gone over the wall. They rushed round and saw my new footmarks flash into being on the lower step and upon the pavement. "What's up?" asked someone. "Feet! Look, feet running!" Everybody in the road, except my 3 pursuers, were pouring along the Salvation Army. And this blow not only impeded me, but them. There was an eddy of surprise and interrogation, at the cost of my bowling over one young fellow. I got through, and in another moment I was rushing headlong round the circuit of Russell Square, with 6 or 7 astonished people following my footmarks. There was no time for explanation, or else the whole host would have been after me. Twice I doubled round corners, thrice I crossed the road, and came back upon my tracks. And then, as my feet grew hot and dry, the damp impressions began to fade. At last I had a breathing space, and rubbed my feet clean with my hands, and so got away altogether. The last I saw of the chase was a little group of 12 people, perhaps, studying with infinite perplexity a slowly drying footprint that had resulted from a puddle in Tavistock Square. A footprint as isolated and incomprehensible to them as Crusoe's solitary discovery. This running warmed me to a certain extent, and I went on with a better courage through the maze of less frequented roads that runs hereabouts. My back had now become very stiff and sore. My tonsils were painful from the cabman's fingers, and the skin of my neck had been scratched by his nails. My feet hurt exceedingly, and I was lame from a little cut on one foot. I saw in time a blind man approaching me, and fled limping, for I feared his subtle intuitions. Once or twice accidental collisions occurred, and I left people amazed, with unaccountable curses ringing in their ears. Then came something silent and quiet against my face, and across the square fell a thin veil of slowly falling flakes of snow. I had caught a cold, and do as I would, I could not avoid an occasional sneeze. And every dog that came in sight, with its pointing nose and curious sniffing was a terror to me. There came men and boys running, first one, then the others, and shouting as they ran. It was a fire. They ran in the direction of my lodging, and looking back down a street, I saw a mass of black smoke streaming up above the roofs and telephone wires. It was my lodging burning, my clothes, my apparatus, all my resources, indeed, except my checkbook and the 3 volumes of memoranda that awaited me in Great Portland Street were there, burning. I had burnt my boats if ever a man did. The place was blazing. The invisible man paused in thought. Glanced nervously. The invisible man paused in thought. Finally got out of his voice. Kemp glanced nervously out of the window. "Yes," he said. "Go on." Chapter 22. In the Emporium. So last January, with the beginning of a snowstorm in the air about me, and if it settled on me, it would betray me. Weary, cold, painful, inexpressibly wretched, and still but half convinced of my invisible quality, I began this new life to which I am committed. I had no refuge, no appliances, no human being in the world in whom I could confide. To have told my secret would have given me away, made a mere show and rarity of me. Nevertheless, I was half-minded to accost some passer-by and throw myself upon his mercy. But I knew too clearly the terror and brutal cruelty my advances would evoke. I made no plans in the street. My sole object was to get shelter from the snow, to get myself covered and warm. Then I might hope to plan. But even to me, an invisible man, the rows of London houses stood latched, barred, and bolted impregnably. Only one thing could I see clearly before me: the cold exposure and misery of the snowstorm and the night. And then I had a brilliant idea. I turned down one of the roads leading from the Gower Street to Tottenham Court Road. I found myself outside Omnium's, the big establishment where everything is to be bought, you know. The place, meat, grocery, linen, furniture, clothing, oil paintings, even a huge meandering collection of shops rather than a shop. I had thought I should find the doors open, but they were closed, and as I stood in the wide entrance, a carriage stopped outside, and a man in uniform, you know, the kind of personage with Omnium on his cap, flung open the door. I contrived to enter, and walking down the shop. It was a department where they were selling ribbons and gloves and stockings and that kind of thing. Came to a more spacious region devoted to picnic baskets and wicker furniture. I did not feel safe there. However, people were going to and fro, and I prowled restlessly about until I came upon a huge section in an upper floor containing multitudes of bedsteads. And over these I clambered, and found a resting place at last among a huge pile of folded flock mattresses. The place was already lit up and agreeably warm, but I decided to remain where I was. I was keeping a cautious eye on 2 of 3 sets of shopmen and customers who were meandering through the place until closing time came. Then I should be able, I thought, to rob the place for food and clothing, and disguised prowl through it, and examine its resources. Perhaps sleep on some of the bedding. That seemed an acceptable plan. My idea was to procure clothing, to make myself a muffled but acceptable figure, to get money, and then to recover my books and parcels when they awaited me. take a lodging somewhere, and elaborate plans for complete realization of the advantages of my invisibility the advantages my invisibility gave me, as I still imagined over my fellow men. We'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.